Hi, welcome back. How was your week? How was the first week of the new year, first full week? Are you back into the swing of things? Like, how's it going? Let me know. I'm just gonna like jump right into this. I have been thinking about this topic and sitting on it for a couple of weeks now. Um, a couple of weeks ago, we found out about the death of Twitch, dancer, DJ, Steven the Twitch boss. Um, and it kind of shook everybody, like even people who didn't know him, people who were like so far distant. It shook me. I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And I was reflecting on it and having so many conversations. People were having conversations with me about it. I was having conversations with people about it. And the number one thing that I kept hearing over and over again is, I don't understand why. So he had decided to end his life early, prematurely. And people are very confused as to why. Why did he do it? And I think, I know oftentimes when these things happen and it's somebody who, looks like they have their life together, they have huge success, people go, well, why did they do it? They had everything. And I want to talk about that because that kind of statement, that type of statement has been like burning in my soul for a couple of weeks now. And we're we're making the right strides, I think. This is my opinion, my perception. We're making the right strides, I think, towards mental health awareness and what mental health means and what mental health looks like, because it doesn't look like one thing and it's often not clear cut. But we still have a really long way to go. There's still a lot of things that we don't understand. And as a society, we're not accepting of yet. We're not ready to have the conversations with yet. But I want to do that today. I want to do that. So we know that there was a battle with depression, as with most people who, take this route. And I apologize. I'm more than likely going to start speaking more scientifically and more from a place of medical awareness. And if that at any point in time sounds a little cut and dry and I guess cold is the word I want to use, that is not my intent. Like, this hits home for me very, very much so. But my goal is to bring you some facts and some awareness and some understanding about depression and about smiling depression and what that is and what that looks like and why we don't talk about that. So let's talk about depression. Most of us are aware of what depression is, right? These are feelings of helplessness, hopelessness. It can cause overwhelming or underlining sadness, a loss of interest, especially a loss of interest in things that once excited you. You can have emotional and physical symptoms. Some people get acne, they lose their hair, their joints hurt, they have profound fatigue. They either have a severe loss of appetite or severe gain in appetite, because this kind of throws off the central nervous system and it can impact their daily function, right? These are like the common symptoms that we know about depression. Depression affects 1 in 15 adults. And we're just going to talk about adults right now because adolescents and children are somewhat of a different topic with a different set of statistics. So about 1 in 15 adults struggle with depression. Depression can be short-term and it can be chronic, meaning long-term. Short-term depression comes on when we go through trauma, a severe change in life, maybe a severe illness. Something prompts it. An event, an action prompts it, but it's short term. Death can prompt depression, grief depression, or depression can be chronic. And it can be chronic because of many factors. It can be chronic because of genetics. It can be chronic because of long-term illness. Long-term illness such as diabetes, cancer, leukemia, autoimmune diseases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It can be chronic if somebody has lived in a state of poverty or a state of fight or flight for a profound period of time. So the quickest example I have of that is like if somebody grew up from birth all the way through to adulthood living in poverty, extreme low income, homelessness, something like that, that can have underlying depression that can be chronic, meaning you can't just shake it. You're not going to get over it. It's not short-term therapy intervention. This is long-term. It can also be caused by your biochemistry. So the chemistry within your body, your central nervous system. We talked about, I have notes because I wanted to make sure I was bringing you straight up facts. Chronic illness, it can be due to personality traits too. So your personality traits can actually cause you to have chronic depression. So, and I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's due to environmental factors, the way that society is. So if you have low self-esteem, if you have anxiety that is untreated, if you have overwhelm or you're pessimistic, or you have another underlying mental health disorder such as bipolar or something along those lines, you can be predisposed, set up for chronic depression. What is treatment for depression? So we're still just talking about depression, generalized depression. So we have psychotherapy, talk therapy, talking to a therapist who will work with you to set up some goals that are actionable, help you work through some things. There's cognitive behavioral therapy where you, the person, are in the driver's seat, making with the support of a mental health professional, a therapist, a counselor, a doctor, making up a plan that is going to be successful and meaningful for you. Behavior support. So this might, look like you needing to make some changes within your life. So you might need a behavior specialist or a behavioral health care practitioner to help support you along the way, to walk with you while you're making those changes. And when I say behavior, I don't mean because you're sad or you're happy or it has nothing to do with your attitude. Behavior is another way of saying action. So this person is going to help you make actionable changes and implement action into your life. There's also medication. So we have medication now that will help level out biochemistry, level out genetics, things like that. That way you can work through depression and the symptoms that come along with it. Another thing that we can do for depression in terms of making a plan, making sure we're pinpointing and nailing down what medications are right for you, is to do a pharmacokinetic test. So this looks like a swab or a blood test. It's a pharmacokinetic test. It will give markers of what medications will and will not work for you. It takes out like a lot of the guesswork. So that way we can prescribe to you the first time the right medication, because some people who struggle with, mental health, even, regular primary care health issues, our bodies don't always respond to medications the way that it's intended. And then we're going through dosage changes or brand changes, and it's a lot of guesswork. So pharmacokinetic testing takes that guesswork out, because your body will tell us in the test results exactly what is a fit for you. So let's move into smiling depression. So smiling depression is more than likely, I'm not going to say it is because I was not his doctor or his therapist, but smiling depression is more than likely what Stephen or Twitch was struggling with. Smiling depression looks like depression. However, we, the outsiders, don't see it. And smiling depression is very, very difficult to catch. It's very difficult to know the signs of smiling depression. It's very difficult to know if somebody is struggling with depression when it is atypical. So let's start with how do we diagnose it? This does not get diagnosed as smiling depression. This gets diagnosed as a major depressive disorder with atypical features. So meaning like it's not straightforward depression, right? Because maybe the person isn't sleeping, and maybe they aren't crying, maybe they aren't outwardly overwhelmed, and maybe this isn't impacting poorly. We're going to talk about what is poor. Their daily life functions, right? So it's atypical. It's the other extreme of it. So smiling depression or atypical depression looks like somebody who is struggling with major depression on the inside, and literally on the outside, they're smiling, they're happy, they're go-getters, they're put together, they're confident, they're normal, hardworking. Maybe they are overachievers and they're always working and they're so driven. And, these are the people that we look at and we're like, wow, they have their family together, their career together, physically they're together, mentally they seem together. They seem together. But inward, they're not. They're not. They're struggling. They're struggling with overwhelm and anxiety and feeling helplessness and hopelessness, and like the candle is going out and it's never going to be lit again. And this is where people say, how can somebody like that feel that when they have everything? They have a beautiful family, a loving spouse, loving family, loving children. They have a great career. They have money. They're like living what most of us can only hope to touch before we die. And it's for the same reasons that people with depression experience. So depression typically actually has nothing to do with your economic status. It can be a factor. It can be an environmental factor of depression, but depression doesn't have to do with your economical status. It doesn't have to do with how many people are around you, because you can have a room full of people around you and still inwardly feel like you're alone in that same room. And just to like reference that, God, I wish I pulled it up. But Robin Williams once, and I very vividly remember him speaking about this, Robin Williams, before he passed away to the same thing, smiling depression, talked about how you could be in a room full of people who loved your presence, and you could make them laugh and make them smile, and they would love you and like you, and you could still feel like you were alone in that room. And that's the same thing. The same underlining factors that cause depression also cause smiling depression, or depression with atypical features. So we're talking about biochemistry, right? We're talking about genetics, illness, chronic illness, your hormones being off, your environmental factors. You know, we don't know what his life looked like. We don't know what it looked like behind closed doors. Did he have time to take care of his mental health? Was he trying? Was this genetic? Was this wired in him? Was he overworking and just missed the signs himself? We don't know. And that's why I'm saying it's very hard to pinpoint when somebody is going through this. I see all the time on TikTok the videos where it says something along the line of post a video of the time where you look the happiest, but it was the time where you were the lowest in your life. It irks me that we glorify that and people participate in that, because it's just screaming like, you're struggling. You're struggling. And by now, damn it, by now, don't we know to reach out for help? We know to reach out for help, but reaching out for help still is not fully accepted. And this is the hard part of the conversation, because people, say like, he had everything, whatever. He had money, he had family, whatever, cars, perfect life, perception of a perfect life. And then they say, well, why didn't he just say something? All for the same reasons why you're saying, why did he do it? He had everything. Oh, I feel a sneeze coming on. For the same reasons you're saying, why did he do it? He had everything. That's the same reason why somebody like that does not ask for help. Because it's a sign of weakness. People who experience smiling depression don't want to be a burden. They don't want to be a burden to their loved ones. They can often live in a state of denial because people around them are chanting, for a better, lack of option here, that you have everything. So they're in denial. Like, everything's fine. I have everything. So everything is fine, when everything is not fine, because maybe your biochemistry is off. Maybe your hormones are off. Maybe you have a chronic illness that you haven't addressed. And now here we are feeling hopeless. The thought of others have it worse, so why complain? And then it's met with the internal feeling that you just can't get rid of. But wouldn't the world be better without me? And now here we are sitting with this loss. Here his family, his wife, his children, his parents are sitting with this loss. There's a level of judgment and stigma that comes along with this, that as a society we can't seem to push through. With all the advances, with all the good that we have done in the interest of mental health illness, it hasn't been enough in the capacity that we know to ask for help. We know to ask for help. We all know to ask for help. But on the other side of that, it's not widely accepted to ask for help. And for a few reasons. Culture is a large reason. It might not be culturally acceptable. In a lot of cultures, it is not dignified to ask for help with mental health, because in many cultures, they rely on the power of prayer and the power of religion, right? And I'm not going to go into specifics of which cultures and what, but there are a lot of cultures out there that rely on that. They rely on the healing powers of prayer, of their Quran, their Bibles, their religious texts to get them through. And if they're feeling any of that anxiety, depression, overwhelm, whatever, then they're not doing it the right way, and they're not praying hard enough, and they're not dedicated to their faith enough. So it is culturally not acceptable. In other cultures, you just power through this. You got to toughen up. You got to have a thick skin. It wasn't that long ago, and we still say it today, where it's like you need to man up and just go through it, because it's like this for everybody, and it's hard like this for everybody. It can be the culture of the family. It can also be the culture of the family, just how they've lived and how it's gone for generation after generation after generation after generation. I know, my parents were a generation of you just barrel through. It's hard for everybody. You just barrel through. My generation is more so ask for help, get help. We're going to listen to you. But there's another half of my generation that's like, oh my God, like you're struggling. Why are you doing that? The generations after me are more accepting, and that's amazing. So it can be hard. It can be hard to notice if somebody's going through this. What can you do? Check in on your family and friends. Check in. How are you? How are you doing? Really, how are you doing? Don't bullshit me. Really, how are you doing? Hey, I was thinking about you and I love you. Sometimes just opening the door, and it's not to say that it's going to work every time, but sometimes just opening the door is all you have to do. The other thing is we need to spread more awareness, and we need to be truly accepting that this is happening and that we have resources and it's okay to use them. If you know somebody that's struggling, or if you're struggling, please dial 988. You can dial it or you can text it. Somebody will speak to you in confidence. Your information will not be shared. Please reach out. A therapist goes a long way. If you're in school, if you're a high school student or a college student, no matter what age you are, please see your guidance counselor. See somebody that can help you. They're out there. We're out there. Please come see us. Valuing your relationships and being invested in them. We've become such a shut-off society where we're just worrying about ourselves that we forget that we have a village to take care of. Like, we have to take care of our village, and we have to be invested in that. But, okay. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. This is out there, and it does happen. And if this is you, it's okay that you're feeling like this. There is help out there. And I hope that you find your strength and find your courage in taking that step to seek help and to seek the therapy and to stay with us. Stay with us. Your life is precious. You are precious. You were put here to do amazing things, to touch the lives of others, and the world will not be the same, for the worse, without you. So that's it. That's all I have. Like I said, it was sitting on my heart, and I just wanted to talk about it and kind of bring a little bit of awareness to it and what the differences were. and what this looks like. If there is information that you would like to share on smiling depression that I have not spoke about, please let me know. Let's talk about it. Let's share this. Let's open the door to this conversation and how we can help our fellow brothers and sisters overcome, because nobody should be walking and suffering in silence. Not when we have a village here. So, in the meantime, until we meet again, be kind, be safe, be clever, be a good friend, make good choices, have fun, and above all else, just breathe. See you soon.